Talkapolis, the social media TV network for your city.
I'm Jeff Cornwall, and this is the Entrepreneurial Mind. Today our guest is Keith Deerkoski, and he's here to talk about a franchising approach to being an entrepreneur. We'll be back to talk to Keith after these words from our sponsor.
Now, I believe we are going to do a Talkapolis offer, and that is a complimentary skincare consultation if someone can come in and do, perhaps book a non-surgical facial rejuvenation with you two doctors, I believe before the end of June. So get your face looking nice and sharp for summer, lads, and come on in and see Dr. Gingras and Dr. Hawes at the Plastic Surgery Center of Nashville.
So welcome to the Entrepreneurial Mind, Keith.
Well, thanks
Appreciate
for having
you being
me.
here, and might I say we're delighted to have you at Belmont teaching franchising to our students and maybe inspiring a few of them to follow the career path that you've gone in your life.
Certainly been a good experience for me too.
Very cool. So how did you get into this? You were in the military, and talk about your journey from there to deciding you wanted to become a franchise owner.
Well, I was in the Marine Corps. I was an officer in the Marine Corps, and in truth, I went to the Naval Academy, so I spent a good decade of my life either in school or in the actual military, and I was looking for a transition. So I decided to go to business school, and when I was in business school, no question about it, my heart was being entrepreneurial,
right?
Having something to do myself that I had, control over. And my career since leaving business school has been that. I worked for a small startup company that was in the financial service, sort of software development side of the business. And then about 8 years after doing that, I said, let's try something different. And I got into franchising.
So franchising is not necessarily for everybody. I mean, there's some things about being a franchisee that some people love and some people find kind of challenging. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I think for me, one of the appealing components of franchising was that you were buying into a model that has been successful, whether it's a business format that you have a true understanding and has been, replicated and made successful, or it's a system and trademark that has been successful over years. You're buying into something that is proven. And what was fascinating for me is then it became a game of who can execute that model the best. And that's why I think holistically I got into the franchise side of it.
Now, you picked the franchise Dunkin Donuts, and what was it? How did you go through that process of figuring out which one you wanted to buy? What were the criteria, and how did you kind of go through the different choices that you might have been looking at?
Well, I'd like to say that I, looking back, that I had all the answers when I went through that due diligence, but now I think I was more lucky than good. And one of the fascinating or really powerful components of the Dunkin model is it's built on frequency. We're one of the only sort of food service models out there where we can have a customer that can come to our concept 7 days a week and have a cup of coffee. That's a perfectly normal routine for somebody, as opposed to other restaurant concepts where they may be very powerful and you may like them, but you're not going to eat a hamburger every day. You're not going to have a burrito every day, but you certainly can come and have a coffee every day. And that frequency has driven growth in our business as one of the more powerful components of it. And
so did you know you wanted to do a restaurant franchise? Because there's so many other business models out there that you can get into these days that are franchised.
Yeah, I think you talk to most people about restaurants and they say, hey, steer clear of that. That is a really difficult business model to execute over the long term. But for us, I think when you merge that with the franchise business format, the ability to have an operating system that works and products that have a great appeal across a large target market, it was appealing to us. So.
And you started with one franchise?
Started with one store, and now next month we'll be up to 10 different stores. So.
Wow. How fast was that growth? And kind of talk about your decision to expand out from that first one.
Well, I'll tell you, it was a difficult process. We started at the end of 2007.
Oh, perfect timing.
It was perfect timing
great
to start
time
a new
to start
business.
a business. Yeah.
Yes. And I tell people this story many times. There was a real pent-up demand for Dunkin Donuts. It was a regional concept.
So there was a hole in the donut market?
Well, there was a hole in the coffee and donut market, and exactly. And a lot of people had moved. Obviously Nashville has tremendous appeal outside of just Tennessee, and so we have a lot of people from the Northeast. So a lot of people knew Dunkin, and when we came, it was exciting. We opened our first store. We did $55,000 in revenue.
Oh, I had 3 neighbors that were counting down the days to when you opened because they're from New York and they couldn't wait to get Dunkin Donuts again.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
6 weeks later, we were doing $9,500.
Wow.
We started with over 50 employees. 6 weeks later, we were down to about 15. It was an incredibly difficult business to manage. Not only the loss of labor as you were going through that process and trying to do that in an effective way, but also then sort of saying, hey, this is what our business is going to generate, now we have to grow it. Well, we've doubled that in 7 years, that one store. But the part about that was interesting is we opened up 2 additional stores in 2008, and both were in gas convenience locations, and both of the operators, or actually the operators of both of those businesses went bankrupt. So we were sitting on a store.
So your landlord went bankrupt?
Actually, there wasn't a landlord. It was the operator of the business. So it was like a traffic center.
Okay.
And so the landlords were real estate investment trusts, but the operators of the business were like a travel center company.
And so you're dependent on them.
Oh yeah,
being successful.
Absolutely. I mean,
have you done any more in that kind of setting, or have you steered
those
clear?
Those have been great.
Okay.
They've been actually great. It's just we ended up having 2 stores where in August and September of 2008, we were the only ones with the lights on. So it was really difficult, especially when you're in a business where our success is driven by people coming to get gas, coming to that establishment to go to the bathroom as a break on their trip, and we were the only business that was actually alive.
So as you're now teaching students over at Belmont about this, what do you want them to take away by the end of the semester? What do you want them to learn about franchising as a business model? Because it's overlooked by a lot of people.
It really is, and it's a tremendous amount of, I think it's over 50% of all retail locations in the U.S. are franchised. It represents a significant portion of our total GDP and a significant portion of total employment in the U.S. economy. So it's tremendous impact and significance. But what I really have been focused on with the students is whether you're going to franchise a business or you're going to become a franchisee, it's really important to understand why franchises are successful. And I try to focus on the franchise business format and the fact that effective franchises have a really powerful operating system that's been proven. It's something that's repeatable. And whether it doesn't really matter what kind of business you have, you really have to be looking at creating a business that can survive without you as a person, as an individual, sort of the hit by the bus syndrome.
Right.
And has processes that are repeatable and scalable. And it doesn't matter whether you have multiple units.
So it may not be the best idea to look for the cheapest, perhaps the newest franchise model, because there's added risk involved at that point.
Definitely added risk in early stage franchises. When I bought into Dunkin Donuts, it was something that was proven. You knew people loved the concept and the product. You knew that there was longevity in the product offering. Early stage concepts, you take on a lot of risk because you simply don't know whether there's that demand that's going to scale over a larger scale.
So my last question, what's your favorite donut?
My favorite donut is actually really boring, but I like just the regular glazed donut.
Really?
Yes. I'm sort of a
you
simple
guys
guy.
have like 10,000 different.
Like 40 different varieties or something
and
like
you
that.
just like the plan.
But hey, listen.
And how many do you eat a week?
I don't eat a lot, to be honest. I focus on the coffee. That's my sin.
Good coffee too.
Yes, very good.
Keith, thanks for coming in, and thanks for all you're doing for our students.
Well, thanks for having me.